Folks, welcome back to Flat Iron Tuning. I'm sitting here in Nigel's race car because we're going to talk about the MAP DCCD controller. We've got a lot of questions since our flurry of DCCD videos have come out lately. So we're going to go into how the box, the MAP DCCD box actually works, how do you connect the computer to it, and then we're also going to talk about how the maps work and then how you can start changing the maps as well. Before I dive into that, just want to say make sure you like, subscribe, hit that hype button if you see it. That helps us out a ton. All right, let's start with the basics, the MAP DCCD controller box. How does the box actually work? So we're going to start with the basic functions of the box. There are two buttons, and then there's this knob, this dial. All right, the dial only works when you are in manual mode. How do you change the modes? All right, when you push one of these two buttons, either one, the first thing it does is it shows you the map that you're in. So Nigel's DCCD controller is in map number 3. So after you push a button the first time, if you want to change the map, then you push the button again. And basically the two buttons, it's just a left or a right. And so that's what moves the selector. All right, so I'm going to push it once. We're going to bring the map all the way back over here to the M. That's the manual mode. Now, when it stops flashing, great, now we're in the manual mode. This is where the dial works. If I turn this dial, you can see the light move. That means that more current is going to the center diff. Or if I turn it back, less current is going to the center diff, because I am in manual mode, and that does not change, so the current going to the center diff is just fixed wherever you put the dial. Now, you go to one next to the right, that is the A, that is the auto mode. That uses the accelerometers in the box, and that just basically changes the lock of the center diff based on whatever those accelerometers are seeing. Worth noting here is that when you're not changing the maps, this light on the face of the DCCD controller, that's telling you how much current is going to the diff or not, basically how open it is if the light's all the way to the green on the left, and how locked it is if it's going into the orange all the way on the right. And if you've seen the video like where we put the diff in various different modes and you see the light moving, that's just the indicator of what it's doing. Then if you want to change any of the modes, you push the button again, you go into these 1, 2, 3, or 4 maps. So this is the 4 stored maps, the pre-built maps that are loaded on the controller, and you can select from them whichever one you want. But to see what maps are loaded on the controller and to change them, that's where you connect the computer. So let's get to that next. So now we have the USB cable, and this is just ours, but MAP DCCD controller comes with one, but connected from the controller to the PC. Power is on. I have the MAP DCCD controller software loaded on my computer, and there's a button here top kind of center that says connect, so I'm going to hit that button to connect. I am now connected to the DCCD controller. So when you see these map 1, 2, 3, and 4 at the top of the screen here, those are the 4 maps that are on the controller as it sits. So here we see map number 1 is Tarmac 1, map number 2 is Tarmac 3, map number 3 is Tarmac 3, and map number 4 is Tarmac 4. That is how MAP DCCD ships these from the factory. Now, what if you want to change the map? Well, let's say we want to put in map 4, we want to put the wet mode or wet map from MAP DCCD. So we go to map 4, we select the file, load map 4 from file, and you're going to have base maps that come in this software in miles per hour, and so we're going to select that. All right, so wet we have down here at the bottom, so I'm going to open this up. So now in map 4 is the wet map. So there's map nodes that see it's wet, and you can see that the settings have changed. So we're gonna get into more details here in a second about how all this works. But now that I've changed this, if I go to upload maps, you're gonna see it transferring the maps to the controller. Now that's done. If you wanted to be 100% sure, you could disconnect and then reconnect to it. But then basically, again, now what you're seeing, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4 is now the wet map. I've now uploaded the wet map onto the DCCD controller. The best way to disconnect, I think, is to exit. That exits the program, and now you can turn off the PC, turn off the DCCD controller, and those maps are now stored on the controller. So let's take a look at what these basically blocks of functionality are actually talking about, and you can start to look and see what the difference is between these maps. Let's head inside. This video is brought to you by the MAP DCCD controller, and MAP DCCD makes the DCCD controller and these two vehicle speed signal processors, the VSSP and VSSP Advanced. Keep all these in stock at flatironstuning.com. We've also got some good guides as far as how to install and wire the MAP DCCD controller, and now a video on how the MAP DCCD controller works. And we've got all the information they need to get this installed in your car and get it working exactly the way that you want it to. So with all that being said, let's get back to the video. All right, so now a little bit more comfortable, but we can now walk through these different maps. And so I've got on my computer set up just like we have on Nigel's car. Map 1 is Tarmac 1, 2 is Tarmac 2, 3 is Tarmac 3, and then 4 is the wet map. So let's talk about these 4 different blocks and what is going on with them. So at the top of the MAP DCCD screen, what we're going to see is the throttle map. Then to the right of that, the throttle modifier. Then below that is the little line that says braking maps. And then to the right of that is the braking modifier. And then there's the left foot braking map, which is the bottom line on the screen. All right, so let's talk about how this works. So the throttle map, basically as you're applying throttle, which we have the throttle position sensor is the x-axis, basically from no throttle to 100% throttle. So no throttle to 100% throttle. Then you go across and then it's looking at engine RPM. So what RPM is the engine at? That is the, the y-axis is throttle, x-axis is RPM. So basically as you're full throttle and the engine RPM increases, then you can see what happens to the lock. And we're in the wet map here. And so basically at 100% throttle, as you go over, basically once the engine's at 3,000 RPMs, you're 90% lock, and then you're 99% lock, effectively full lock at 3,500 RPMs, and then that's just what happens. Now, if you back off the throttle and you go to, say, 50% at 3,500 RPMs, now you only have 83% lock of the center diff. If the engine slows down, then the lock opens up. If the engine RPM goes up, then the lock increases. But if you come off the throttle, then that's where you go basically up the y-axis. And so at 3,500 RPMs, if you come off the throttle, then that also is what unlocks the center diff. So basically, like with that in mind, that's what the throttle map is doing. It's basically just the more throttle you go and the more RPM that you have, the more lock that you're getting in the case of this map. Worth looking here at the different maps. So map 1, you can see how that behavior is. It's not as aggressive as the wet map. Map 2 is the same amount of lock. Map 3 is still the same amount of lock. And then again, with the wet map, you can see that it is more aggressive in terms of lock. Now, let's go and look at the throttle modifier. So this is looking at vehicle speed in the x-axis, and in the y-axis, this is lateral acceleration. So again, there's an internal G sensor to the MAP DCCD box, and so this is, the default is set to the lateral acceleration, so if the car is turning. So if the DCCD sensor reads that the car is turning, you have the G's here in the y-axis, 0 to 1G. And there's a checkbox here that enables this. But then there's also a drop down here. We can actually select different options for this. So we have a longitudinal accelerometer. So is the car accelerating or not? This would be like for a drag input. And then you can add in like the Subaru sensors, a 0 to 5 volt sensor. Like if you wanted to add an external something that you wanted to use to control it, you can add it here. But the default, again, is the lateral accelerometer. So we'll just talk about how that works going forward. So basically, let's say that you're going 40 miles an hour, and let's say you're at 100% throttle and 3,500 RPM. So with our first map here, we would know that we'd be at 99% lock, but if the car is turning, now we're subtracting, let's say we're turning hard, 1G. Now we're going to subtract 25 from that, or 25 points. So instead of 99, now we're at 74. So that's basically how this works. Is you have the initial map, initial lock is determined by the throttle position and the RPM. Then you're modifying that depending on if the car is turning and how hard and how fast the car is going. So that's how these maps work. So you look at the initial behavior and then the modifier. And then again, you can go back and look at 1, 2, 3, Tarmac 1, 2, 3, and look at what the differences are because, for instance, map 1, there's no unlocking. Map 2, there's minimal unlocking. Map 3, there's a little bit, or actually it's the same unlocking, but now we have braking modifiers. So that's how you can look at these maps and tell what the difference is. Now let's look at the braking modifier behavior. We'll look at, we'll start here with tarmac 1. All right, so with the MAP DCCD controller, the brake input is basically the brake switch. It's an on-off. So if you're braking, it's going to switch from the throttle position to brake. The left foot braking function, this is where, if you're applying throttle and brake at the same time, and you click on the left foot braking modifier, then it will go to the left foot braking modifier, because sometimes, like in a rally car, for instance, you want to use your left foot on the brake to control the slide a little bit. So then that would be your brake modifier versus just like normal driving where you'd come off the throttle, go on to the brake, then you're going to switch from the throttle to the brake modifier. And the brake modifier is, again, it's one input. Are you on the brakes or not? And it's very simple, and it's just adding lock based on vehicle speed. So if the car is stopped, there's no modifier. If you're going 15 miles an hour, you get 10 points of lock. 30 miles an hour is 20 points of lock if you're on the brakes, and so on. Now, we look at the Tarmac 2 map compared to the Tarmac 1. Tarmac 1, there's no modifier if you're on the brakes and the car is turning. Tarmac 2, there is. So if the car is turning, so you have the lateral accelerometer giving a reading and the vehicle speed. This one is easier to picture because, again, like say at 60 miles an hour, you'd have 80 points of lock. But at 60 miles an hour, if you're turning with 1G on the brake, then you have 35 points removed from that. So instead of 80, you're getting 45 points of lock, so 45% lockup if the car is turning. So basically, as you're turning, it's starting to unlock the center diff, even if you're on the brakes, so the car starts to loosen up. And you can see the different braking behavior maps. So the Tarmac 3 is more aggressive in how it unlocks the center diff if you're turning and on the brakes, compared to Tarmac 2. Tarmac 4 is more aggressive still. And then the wet map, well, it's just going to lock up if you're on the brakes, but there's no modifier if you're cornering. So that's the difference, and that's how you can start to kind of look at these maps and see what the differences are. And just a quick footnote here at the end, if you want to change some of these values, like if I'm going 40 miles an hour, 1.5 Gs in Tarmac 2, but I want to remove 50% of the lock, you can just put that into the cell, and then you can start entering values, and that's how you can change the behaviors. So that's what these maps, how these maps work, and that's how you can kind of start to, you drive with the car with the different maps on, you can start to feel the differences, then you can look at the map settings and start to see what the different values are, which are kind of contributing to that difference in behavior. And then you can go in there and start adding values, you can change things that way, and that's how you can start building custom maps, which now you know how you can go and load them on the DCCD. So in a nutshell, that is how the MAP DCCD works. That's how the maps work, and that's how you connect your computer to the MAP DCCD controller. And of course, this is available at Flatirons Tuning if you need it. We try to keep these things in stock, and we really do like this Diff controller. So thanks very much for your support as always, and until next time, stay tuned to Flatirons Tuning.